Welcome back to more Neotech. Today we are going over the metal system. This is fun, and we will also get into ore tripling. Let's just jump right into it. So here we have the Crucible. I'm actually just going to do more of an abstract talking about these things because setting them up takes a little bit of setup, and I don't have them set up. I just have them sitting next to each other. Here we have the Crucible. The Crucible is fairly simple. Let's go to it in JEI. What it does is it takes a metal and melts it down into the relevant metal. Very, very simple. Now, here is where you need to keep something in mind. Here is lead ore. Lead, in all of its forms, gets melted into molten lead. But lead ore gets turned into dirty molten lead. This is where the ore tripling mechanic comes in. If you look here, 1 ingot of lead is 144 millibuckets. An ore turns into 432, which is 3 times 144. So 1 ore turns into 3 ingots worth of molten lead, though you have to do some cleaning to get the actual molten lead out of there. So Neotech adds a bunch of metals. We have a very dynamic metal registry system that makes our lives super easy to add metals. As you can see over here, and probably better demonstrated in the Creative tab under Neotech Metals, we have ore, block, ingot, dust, nugget, all added for all these metals, including the vanilla things, so iron nugget, iron dust, etc. We are adding in support for those. Here's some dirty gold and silver. Let's see if I can find the normal gold. There it is. As you can see, we add these into the game because we want to make sure that we have plenty of opportunities for crafting and other such things. So as you can see here, we have a bunch of metals. The metal gets melted in the Crucible. Now, the solidifier is very simple. It solidifies things. You can solidify things in block mode, ingot mode, and nugget mode. It will take a molten thing and solidify it. So let's look at JEI for that. The recipe here, electric solidifier. And of course, as you can see, we do have JEI support for all of these machines. Here we have the molten steel, and it turns into, in block mode, a block, in ingot mode, an ingot, and in nugget mode, a nugget. Who would have guessed? Alright. I believe we only have recipes for metals. Let me see if we have anything else. Obsidian, of course. And this recipe actually needs to be changed. But yes, we have liquid carbon and obsidian as well. And that is how you make steel. But, again, I'll get into that once we move on to the alloyer. The alloyer takes in energy, 2 fluids, and makes a 3rd fluid. So, for instance, steel. Let's look up the recipe for steel. Alright, here is the alloyer. It only has 3 recipes at the moment. You take some water and lava, and you get some obsidian. This is where I was saying I needed to reverse the solidifier, but that will be coming in an update. The 36 millibuckets into a block. So now we have iron, and liquid carbon turns into steel. So if you melt down some iron, remember, not iron ore, but iron, and then some carbon, charcoal will give 2, coal 1, combine them in the alloyer, and it will make steel. You can also make bronze this way using 1 tin and 3 copper. I'm going to go ahead and click on this so I can show you that charcoal creates 2 ingots worth, I guess is the best way to describe it, of carbon. Regular coal gives that, and of course a block of coal will give you a block's worth. So those 2 combined in the alloyer make steel. This guy is how you make steel. Steel is used in some of our recipes, including the centrifuge. So now that I've gotten to that, we'll go over the recipes. Just some buckets, a cauldron to melt it in, some iron and copper, easy to get your hands on. A solidifier uses some snowballs to cool down the tank. We were going to do ice, but ice is a little bit harder to get your hands on without silk touch, so to make your lives easier, we're using snowballs. And it uses lead, which is generated fairly low and requires an iron mining level. Here we have the solidifier, 2 tanks, and some bronze. So you can make bronze without that using dusts, just like you'd expect. So yes, you can make this machine but it does also make bronze. It makes making bronze easier. And the centrifuge, which is your gateway into ore tripling. It does require steel, so you have to make these, at least the Crucible, the alloyer, and the solidifier. So you have to have your metal operations up and running before you can get into the ore tripling mechanic. Yes, we're making this a little bit difficult, but again, that's kind of what you want. So we have block of iron and 2 tanks. The centrifuge here takes a fluid in and turns it into 2 fluids. In the future, this will be used to get gases as well, but we're not there yet. I'm getting ahead of myself. Let's look at the centrifuge recipes. So if I wanted to get, let's see here. Let's go to usage instead. If I wanted to get molten lead, how would I get that? Well, remember how I talked about dirty molten lead? If you put that in the centrifuge, it will separate it out into your molten lead and lava. So you see here 1 ingot's worth gives you 1 ingot's worth. Because the ore gives you 3 ingots worth of dirty molten lead, you can now separate it into 3 ingots worth of regular molten lead, which will then get put into the solidifier to make your ingots. So it is a multi-step process. You have to melt the ore, put the ore into the centrifuge, pull out the lava and the fluid, and you need to have these tanks empty when it will centrifuge. So if one of these is empty, it will not process. Again, if it already has lead and lava in it, it will start filling those up, but if one is empty, it registers that as an invalid recipe setup and will not process. So make sure if you pull one of these fluids out, you pull the other one out as well before you start smelting some more. Alright, I know that's a little bit complicated, but that is in a nutshell how the processing works. So again, to kind of make it visual, in order to get your ore tripling, you have to put the crucible down and you need to melt ore into dirty ore. That gets centrifuged, where you will then pull out lava and regular and then solidified. So these 3 machines are what you need to do your tripling. Now keep in mind, these use quite a bit of energy a tick, and they take quite a while. Again, these can be upgraded, so you can look down here. Processor room is 112 ticks, and a hard drive will make the energy bigger. If you do put in processors, it requires more energy, but it takes less time. So that's sort of a balance you will have to strike. And that's pretty much all about the metals. We have world generation that is supported by Simply Retrogen. If you look at our CurseForge post, we have information on how to enable Simply Retrogen to generate our ores into your world if you're putting this in after you've created it. So that way, you can have all the access to our stuff. I also should mention that we are sort of integrated with Tinker's Construct, and I mean that by our fluids are under the same name as theirs. So if you put in tin and you get a Tinker's molten tin out, that's fine. That's supposed to happen. You can also use the smeltery to get molten metals. So if you use the smeltery to get molten tin, that will work in the thermal binder. So if you do not have the resources to power this for that long, but you have Tinker's Construct installed, feel free to get your molten tin that way. But, of course, we like our machines. Use them if you want. And that is just about how it goes. You can also use this crucible here. As I said, it makes fluids that are interchangeable with Tinker's Construct. So if, for say, you wanted to make a metal hammerhead, you can put 8 ingots in here, attach a faucet to the side of it, and pour it out. If you look at Donovan's Twitter, at some point he tweeted a picture of us doing that. So feel free to work between the two. We're doing our best to stay integrated with any mod that comes out. I will get more into that in the next video when we go over pipes and the multi-part integration. So if you want to see that, go to the next video and check out pipes. So for now, here's the end of metals. If I have to come back to this and explain any of it, I will, but there it is. There's your ore tripling, there's your melting down metals, there's our dynamic system, and I will see you next in the pipe video.